All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live again. Welcome to Mr. Rogers' Playhouse. Give me your credit card numbers, social security codes, so I can plug it into my AI system and AI can finally rule your world. That's what this is all about. Welcome to Pangburn. Today's topic, we are speaking about a general category that no one's ever heard of, and it's called politics. And we're also talking about a man that nobody has ever heard of as well, and that is Donald Trump. So this is very original, what we're doing today. Has President Trump done anything good? That is the question today. I'm going to share this with the server. Make sure everyone is in here giving their unbiased, balanced, positive and negative utility answers, I'm sure. That everyone has Trump done anything good. We are effing live. Travis said effing, cancel him now, kill him. If he can't be canceled, kill him. Now I'm going to give everyone, because I'm sure this is going to be a wild stream. Wildly good faith and helpful, by the way. That's the kind of wild we're going for. I got to put this invite. What's up, Robin?
Oh, you suckered me in on this one, didn't you?
I did. I was trolling for Robin. I put a little tiny bait on the hook, and we know it was a golden piece of orange bait, and she took it. She took the bait.
Yeah. We used all the best lures and everything.
Yeah, it didn't take no lures though.
I just put a piece of dyed orange shit on the end of a hook, and Robin couldn't help but jump out for it.
Oh my God.
And it's going to now before Robin gets her crucifix, her pitchfork, her lighter fluid, the question today is, has President Trump done anything good? That's what we're going to be examining. I'm going to bore you all with my notes and my reading to start off, and then we're going to open up this septic tank and start smelling it.
Not enough, but he has done good stuff.
Quite frankly, I've done the best stuff.
No.
Nobody has done better stuff than my stuff. My stuff smells the best. I'm still
very
embedded.
Yeah, good stuff.
Okay. And we can get into the bad stuff today as well. That's fine. So I wanted to start off with some strong arguments where Trump, based on my moral quest, my standard of maximizing well-being, wait a second before I do that. We cannot forget to share with our lovely folks on X. We have some folks on X. Let me just copy and paste this. Oh, Travis uses X. Cancel him, kill him, burn him. Yeah, I advertise on X.
That's what I've been saying this whole time.
That's what I've been saying his entire career. Kill him. Kill him, sir. I'm going to share with my other account too. I have like 8,000 followers on one of my X accounts, and I always forget I have that. I should probably use that. This. Going to share this. Boom shakalaka. And then I got to go over here. You got to do this maintenance. You got to do this sharing. Oh, I was thinking of also going live on on TikTok, because now we have like 4,000 subs over on TikTok. So I should probably start doing that as well. I need a software where I can just press one button and all this shit gets done. Boom. Has El Presidente El Trumpo done any good-o? Okay. Now I think I can do my sermon on well-beingism. Of course, as most of you know, I am a moral well-beingist. My moral quest is to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. I use well-being as my calculus to determine good, bad, right, and wrong. This is my consequentialist moral quest. And then I also have, to keep me rational to the purpose laid out by my moral quest, I have the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims. My forthcoming book is all about the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxim, which within them also includes the moral quest. It's part of it. But yeah, that is ultimately what I'm trying to do with any of my work, anything I've ever done through Pangburn in the past 10 years. That is the goal. Arceon says, Deporto Travis Pangburno, foro that terrible Spanishio. Yes, deport me. I'd like to see them try. I've already cloned myself like 20 times down here. You're going to have to deport Travisito, Travagumero, all of these different things. But anyways, that's my moral quest. I have the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims: fallibilism, well-being, communication, patience, lightheartedness, and inspiration. There are corresponding maxims with all those. If you want to look at that, go to pang-burn.com, go to the About page. You'll see more information there. Or you'll be able to buy my book at some point this fall. Hopefully. Yeah, so let's rock and roll on this. Oh, and if everyone in the chat, it really helps out our live stream here on YouTube on the new Pangburn YouTube channel if you actually use the chat and also have the stream playing on mute on YouTube. It just really helps the algorithm if you guys could do that and chat more there than on Discord here. Sweet. So here are some strong arguments where Trump did things that likely increased well-being, physical, mental, and social health. There are some caveats. So let's look at physical health. Operation Warp Speed. This is one of the strongest candidates. Operation Warp Speed accelerated vaccine development, manufacturing, and distribution during the COVID-19 pandemic. Potential benefits: faster vaccine availability, likely saved many lives, reduced hospitalizations and severe illness, less economic disruption due to earlier reopening. Trump also frequently downplayed, this is kind of a little side note, the severity of COVID-19, sent mixed public health messages, and sometimes undermined confidence in mitigation measures. Those actions may have offset some benefits. But overall, likely great amounts of net positive for physical health, although accompanied by contradictory messaging at times. Right to Try. Right to Try Act expanded access to experimental treatments for terminally ill patients. Benefits: increased autonomy, hope for patients with no remaining options, limitations. Relatively few patients ultimately benefited. Critics argued compassionate use programs already existed. So there's a small amount here, but positive. As a moral well-beingist, I'm looking at any of this stuff that's the right kind of posture, moving in the right direction. Criminal justice reform, First Step Act. Benefits include reduced some mandatory minimum sentences, expanded rehabilitation programs, reduced recidivism risk, improved reintegration into society. Physical and mental health effects, better prison conditions, family reunification, reduced long-term trauma associated with incarceration. This is widely regarded as one of Trump's most bipartisan legislative achievements. Mental health, lower unemployment before COVID. Prior to the pandemic, unemployment reached historic lows. Wages increased among many lower income workers. Black and Hispanic unemployment reached record lows. Employment generally correlates with lower depression, lower suicide risk, greater life satisfaction, improved family stability. Much of this reflected continuation of the long post-Great Recession recovery. So economists debate how much credit belongs to presidential policy versus broader economic trends. Still, if employment contributes to well-being, these conditions likely benefited many people. Deregulation. Supporters argue deregulation lowered business costs, encouraged hiring, increased entrepreneurship. If these effects occurred, they could indirectly improve physical and mental well-being through higher incomes and employment. Critics argue environmental and workplace protections were weakened by this deregulation. Social health, Abraham Accords. Abraham Accords normalized relations between Israel and several Arab countries. Potential benefits: reduced regional tensions, increased economic cooperation, expanded tourism, encouraged diplomatic engagement. Whether these agreements ultimately produce long-term peace remains debated, but many foreign policy scholars view them as a significant diplomatic achievement. And we always do want to see what foreign policy scholars, not just like handpicking some scholars and saying, well, there is a scholar that said, no, we want to know the scholarly consensus. So when we see things like many foreign policy scholars, that's a good sign. We want to see a consensus about whether or not this is a significant diplomatic achievement. Prison reform. The First Step Act also promoted family reunification, lower recidivism, stronger community integration. These contributed directly to social health. Opportunity zones sought to increase private investment in distressed communities. Potential positives: redevelopment, job creation, housing improvements. Critics argue many investments flowed into projects that would likely have happened anyway or primarily benefited investors. Evidence on this remains a bit mixed. So we have some positive things, and I also let you in on some critic notes there. So judging actions by their effects on physical, mental, and social health rather than ideological commitments. A plausible evaluation is we see some strong positives regarding Operation Warp Speed, First Step Act, Abraham Accords, historically low unemployment before COVID, right to try, some economic growth and wage gains. So before we crack open the nut on the negative stuff, because this is really assessing, has President Trump done anything good today? We want to get to the good where we can. And a lot of people in the room are anti-Trump, is a way of putting it. I am, and I have a lot of reasons for that that we can get into later. I am the one promoting the anti-Trump debate tour around the United States, where we've had something like 15 dates in 15 different cities. It was really fun to tour the West Coast with Destiny and Don Don. Don Don was my right-hand man for that leg of the tour. We had a lot of fun, and it was great meeting the anti-Trumpers and the Trump supporters. It was awesome to bring everyone together and have good faith, helpful conversations. You can, of course, see those conversations on the main Pangburn YouTube channel. If you just search anti-Trump tour, you will find the videos. And, for the most part, I think, I was really proud of how Destiny handled those discussions thus far. And everyone had a great time. I think everyone's well-being really was increased by these experiences, and yeah, it's just great. But and just because we're not, just because some of us might be in general on the anti-Trump side, it doesn't mean we can't count the wins as well. If you're only counting the misses, you're engaging in negativity bias. If you're only counting the hits, you're engaging in positivity bias. So there's my like general assessment to kick things off. There's been some positives by way of well-being, physical, mental, and social health. So I thought it would be cool to bring in Robin next. Robin?
Thank you. Yes, everybody knows I'm not a big Trump fan, but I will recognize a few things that he has done. You brought up the Operation Warp Speed, which I think was, highly effective at saving many lives, even though, there was a lot of trouble getting people to become vaccinated. He did do some work with the veterans' health care, but he had some good legislation. The Mission Act, which was something that helped expand the veterans' health care. He funded, he did a lot of funding for the historically Black colleges and universities, signing legislation providing longer-term federal funding for HBCUs, so that was a big deal. He also signed the Preventing Animal Cruelty and Torture Act, making many acts of animal cruelty actual federal crimes that could be prosecuted federally. And of course, the space policies with a lot of people argue that will turn out to eventually be beneficial to humanity also. So I will recognize his benefits in that right there. And pretty much the other ones were the same ones you named that I had.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And just because I like to be annoying and rigorous, can you also outline again, and we've been doing this for many nights in a row, when you're measuring the goodness, what kind of outcomes are you looking for? Do you use well-being calculus as well, physical, mental, and social health, or do you have a different kind of consequentialist calculus?
Yes, I definitely, for the physical, mental, and social health of of people in the United States and of people who are not in the United States. So I think that as the United States, we are a major country, and we play a role in the world, in a lot of what's going on in the world too, as well as what we do at home. So
fantastic. Thanks, Robin. I want to go to Arcion next. Arcion is former MAGA. So it would be interesting to hear your, I think what we should do first is, because I think this would be really good for people to hear your story. Can you, if you feel comfortable, could you tell us a bit about your story, your history with being MAGA, what caused you to leave MAGA, as much detail as you could provide? That would be, I think, a great educational opportunity here.
Yeah, sure. So basically, my name's Arcion, and and back in 2016, I actually didn't vote for Trump originally. I voted down tickets. Then in 2020, I voted for him, and because I liked a lot of things that he was doing. I didn't think he was perfect, but I liked a lot of his policies, in the way, and I mostly liked that he was a bull in a china shop, kicking around a lot of like the old guard out of a lot of neocons and rhinos, and then I voted for him again in 2024. But what I kind of realized is that something I should have realized a long time ago. Something that I think I was aware of a little bit in 2016, but I was so caught up in the meme of Trump, as well as some of his policies I didn't think were too bad, like his his border wall I really liked, was that he really isn't a true conservative. Like he doesn't really truly believe in what conservatives believe in. And I started to realize that I was voting for someone who lied about most of what he was going to do. He betrayed a lot of the principles that he said he was going to have. And then I started looking at his track record as a person, multiple wives, sleeping with Stormy Daniels, never taking responsibility for any of that stuff, being involved with politics for a long time without ever running for them. So like we can all say Hillary Clinton was a legacy candidate if we want to, but ultimately we can't ignore the fact that Trump had been rubbing shoulders with political elites way before he ever got into politics. Now that's kind of my backstory about that.
Okay, fantastic. And what about today's question? Has President Trump done anything good in your views? And then eventually, just so you're prepared, I will ask you to provide the kind of calculus you use to discern good, bad, right, and wrong in the world. But please start with your assessments, or you can start with your metrics if you want.
Sure. So, wait. What was the first thing you wanted to be explained again? I'm sorry, I have a really bad memory.
Well, why don't you first start with how you discern good, bad, right, and wrong in the world, and then that can lead us into your assessments about any goodness that has come out of Trump's presidencies.
Yeah, sure. So, I would say that the way I look at good and bad is I do believe that there is some level of objective morality, because I believe that if we don't believe in objective morality, then we don't really believe in anything I find to be useful when it comes to morality. Because at some point we have to ask the question, well, why does one person's morality mean more than somebody else's? I'm not a utilitarian. I don't think I have the most sophisticated answer to your question, Travis. Just because I haven't gone deep into philosophy. But one thing that I think determines good or bad is kind of similar to your human flourishing belief that you want people to have good well-being, the best we possibly can. I also have a strong belief in the need for justice and the need for forgiveness and reconciliation to society once someone has paid their debt to humanity when they have done something wrong.
All of that stuff you just added on. Like when you said you also believe in justice, you also believe, there should be forgiveness and a way for someone to reassimilate. All of that stuff, I think, is captured by well-being calculus with regards to physical, mental, and social health, because all of that stuff has a direct impact on that for you and those around you. So I would say there's really nothing that I've been able to recognize that doesn't fit into well-being calculus, so long as you agree that we are referencing physical, mental, and social health. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. Now, okay. I'm not religious. I'm agnostic, so I can't really back up something with anything metaphysical. Although I am searching right now for faith. So yeah, but a lot of I definitely think that we need to focus on human flourishing and well-being when it comes to morality. Yeah. But also,
you and I agree with that. So now you can say, when people ask you this question, you can say you are a consequentialist, and the consequentialist modeling you use is flourishing by way of well-being. And then you can edit that as you go along your journey as much. But that in academic circles, that would be considered consequentialism. Yeah.
I do sometimes like what virtue ethics present to me, but I don't think I'm a virtue ethicist.
Dude, I gotta tell you, this is what I find important about virtue ethics, and it's to do with praxis, practicing our ethical standards out there in our day to day. So yeah, we have the consequentialist, I call it moral quest. That for me, it's maximize, the way I state it is maximize well-being for myself and those around me. But then what I'm what I, once was very curious about, what are some principles I can have in my memory bank, things that I can carry with me out into the world while I'm trying to enact this moral quest, that are going to remind me and keep me rational to the purpose of my moral quest. And that's where I engage with virtue ethics. So for example, if you look at the 6 Penguin Virtues and Maxims, like in my forthcoming book, you'll notice that what I'm most interested in demonstrating is why it's important to hold these 6 things as high virtues, because of how they act in service to the consequentialist moral quest. So I really think virtue ethics is where we go, and where we should go, ought go, to keep ourselves rational to whatever kind of consequentialist quest we have going. Now, sometimes that will mean people need to form their own virtues that help keep them in a straight logical line, or as straight as it can be, to that quest, so that we are, rationally serving that purpose. But I offer, 6 virtues that I think are quite universal, that would help almost, any articulable person or personality or personhood that is really trying to seek maximization of physical, mental, and social health. So yeah, it just, whenever someone brings up virtue ethics, something I like to point out, like, a person doesn't have to be either a deontologist or a consequentialist or a virtue ethicist. You can be all of them. And I would argue that many people, depending on when and how you ask them, have versions of all 3 playing within their being, within the purview of their experience. So I'm not sure we can actually even escape consequentialism, virtue ethics, and deontological pronouncements of duty. I mean, all of us live under legal systems that are deontological, and many of us are going to agree with the deontology of those legal systems, because they happen to coincide with what we think is good consequentialism and what we think would be good virtues to uphold. Like when a mother says to children, like, let's be patient now. There's a reason why patience as a virtue has lasted through the ages and has memed its way into almost every home you can imagine, patience being promoted as a virtue. So anyways, I just wanted to say that, because it's always I think it's always important to try our best to learn to articulate these sentiments in as much academic detail as we can. So please continue with your thoughts on the goodness of Donald Trump, and we'll get into the negative kind of after this.
Sure. So I think he did a good job with the border. Like I like the idea of an actual wall. Now, was he perfect with it? I don't think so. But I think that he actually got the ball rolling more than any other president has. Like he tried to wall up areas that needed to be the wall. And I'm someone who, while I don't believe in punishing all illegal immigrants the same, if your crime was just crossing the border illegally, I don't think that should be treated quite the same as somebody who commits like a violent crime, like a rape or murder. I do believe in border enforcement and making sure that people do something like that. So I thought that was a pretty good one. I didn't like what he had to do with firearms. That was not the greatest. But I do think that him trying. I know this is going to sound like a controversial opinion. Was sorry?
It's a civil misdemeanor to cross the border illegally.
Oh, okay. It's still considered a form of a crime, but that's fine. It's not a high crime.
It's still a crime. It's just not like it's a specific type of crime.
Yeah, and again, it really depends on what someone's doing and when they're in the states that I think we should prioritize. But anyway, one thing I did like that he did, other than the border, was I really did like how he treated the. I know it's going to sound a little controversial, but I actually didn't mind the tariffs. I actually thought that at some point we had to realize that we're not playing the same game on an international level with other countries. There's like specifically places like China. So I was okay with that. I just don't think he did the way he executed it was not very intelligent, and it was too emotional based. But I think that that we did need some kind of protectionism because
Well, William,
like,
William, if you
a lot
could mute, we will eventually get to like the back and forth aspect of this session, William. So we will let's let Arsion go first, and then you'll have your chance to lay out your case, etc., and then we will open up the back and forth. But yeah, Arsion, continue.
Yeah, like so I think that we need to realize that like places like China, and India and other places is don't have as great of like laws that protect the workers, and so they can abuse and and underpay their workers by a lot. So I think that was something that I actually appreciated. Operation Warp Speed was a good thing. What Robin talked about with like treating like with animal welfare was good, but I don't know a whole lot of other things that he's done that I would really consider to be great. So I'll leave it at that when it comes to what I liked that he did.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have some things to add with regards to what William? Do you want to go now with regards to things you think Trump did that were good?
Yeah, sure. So I like that he's trying to set national boundaries because I feel like people were taking advantage of America for the longest time. But I think he's a hypocrite because he's not setting those same boundaries with Israel. So he kind of undermines his own good deeds there.
Okay. And what else?
That's my biggest problem with him.
Okay. So
like, has he
what
done
about
good? Like,
Yeah.
I think he undermines the good stuff he does.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard for me to pick a big one.
And everyone, hold on to your these negative things, because Arsion has been speaking quite positively about like the border wall and a few other things. William just mentioned that this was his particular major gripe with Trump, and I'm sure there's other gripes that some people listening would think are way more egregious than what he just outlined. So let's keep those in mind. Does anyone else have anything they want to lay out with regards to where Trump has done good things as president? Maybe some things that haven't been mentioned, or you can restate some of the same things. And that's fine if we don't have any more good here. Pat Grondin on YouTube just said Operation Warp Speed was by no means a good thing. Okay, yeah, Pat, hopefully you'll join us on Discord. It'd be awesome to get your voice included in the conversation here. Yeah, that would be great.
Could I? Is it okay if I expand on that maybe a little bit?
Yes, go ahead, Robin. Just first, Robin, before you go, William, please be muted when it's not your turn or when you don't have something directly to say, if you could.
All right, I'm about to mute.
Yes, I think that Operation Warp Speed was very life-saving for many people. If you look at rates of just vaccination within the state of Florida, you go back and you look at the rates of the vaccinated amongst between the Democrats and the Republicans, just using that separation right there, it's unbelievable. The amount of the mortality rates that were so much higher among the Republicans in the state of Florida, the hospitalizations and the length of hospitalization. So I think that it's pretty obvious. The data actually shows that the vaccine saved millions, possibly millions of lives, and no one was forced to take it. And like it was, the best, like it was the best thing that we had at the time. And like it was too bad that like I'm trying to think of good things to say about him, but I won't bring it. But I think he totally mishandled the pandemic. But that Operation Warp Speed is probably the one good thing that came out of his term during that. So I would disagree with the person in the YouTube chat.
Right. Yeah, I would too. Yeah.
Yeah, the data shows that the vaccine saved millions of lives.
And I mean, there are a lot of critiques that could be laid out with regards to how Operation Warp Speed was carried out, and that issue of how some of the messaging coming out of the mouth of Donald Trump was kind of contradictory to the warp speed thing. And then we later find out that like Trump is saying that he knew it was really bad, but he was trying to like calm people down by telling them it wasn't too bad. Like there was all of this, I would say like not very rational, unwise communication going on with regards to that. So maybe when someone is assessing and critiquing Operation Warp Speed, they're going to see that as, a significant detriment to what it could have been. You know what I mean, Robin? Does that make sense?
Well, there's a lot of people that are making all these claims that all this, these people suffered different injuries or sicknesses because of the vaccine, but yet, when you go down through those claims and take them individually and look at the things, there's not any data to back those up. They're pretty much just anecdotal stories of people. And my mom is one of them. My mom, she took the vaccine and then suddenly something's wrong with one of her arms, and so she tries to blame it on vaccine, even though there's not really any data or any reason to think that's what it was. She ended up suffering a stroke later on that I would not say had anything to do with the vaccine. So that may have been something to do with her arm there. But I took it. I took 2 of them. I did not have the third one. It caused me no injuries, and I was glad to be able to get it to keep from getting sick.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. It was nice to see like that the Trump presidency wasn't like going full anti-vax or anything like that, because obviously that could have been like horrifying, the outcomes.
I don't think people recognize enough that he took the vaccine, and like he took the vaccine, and all of our lawmakers took the vaccine, even though there were some of them that were promoting like something against other people taking it. They all took it. So.
Right. Is there anyone thus far, and I'm sure we're going to get more people as it gets later here, that has anything else good to say? And if not, Arcion, I would love to get into like you mentioned like some of the well, let's talk about the border wall. What did you like about the border wall? And let's talk about that with like a little more detail.
Sure. It was big. It was beautiful. Okay. So I'm someone who believes that that we need secure borders in order to have a functioning country. It's just a fundamental thing I think needs to happen, and I think it's very obvious that unlike Canada, where you're from, there's a lot more people trying to get into the United States from Mexico and Latin America through Mexico than there is from Canada. Probably because Mexico is far poorer than Canada and the United States are, and relations haven't always been the greatest.
Okay, fair enough. So you, is there any aspect of the wall project that you disagreed with? either like with regards to the overall plan, the execution, because I believe it wasn't
Yes.
finished, right? Like, so why don't you expand on that?
Right. So it was made a little hastily. I will say that. It was also very expensive, although I guess if you're going to have a wall, you're going to have to like accept a certain amount of expense. But I think my biggest one, and this is something that Brandon Herrera, who's running for Congress right now, he's also known as AK Jesus, for various reasons. He talks about like in Texas, there's a very big problem that they're having right now with the wall, which is there's an area of Texas that's like a national park, and this national park is really really hard to just walk through very easily on your own. There's like people like monitor it with drones and stuff like that. It's a very beautiful area, but there's no need for a wall there, and walling it would actually like destroy a lot of the natural environment. And unfortunately, that's not the first time that Trump wanted to like wall off an area that is already kind of a natural border wall in and of itself that didn't need a wall there and potentially destroy environmental area. That's something I had a problem with. That's one other thing. Yeah. And ultimately, I also kind of just wish he had just planned it a little bit better, because like he was getting stuff done with the wall, but he kept having to go to different government organizations for like the money, and instead of getting Congress all riled up and ready to
or getting Mexico to pay for it, right?
Yeah. That, well, I think that was more of a meme than anything else, but I really think
but I mean, like, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Like, for me, I try to be as honest as I can be, and like, if that's going to be part of your slogan, and you have a kind of constituency that's going to believe that, right? Now there are people out there who are like, yeah, they might have just said, yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, Mexico's going to pay for it, but they might, like some of the more moderates, or maybe we could say more educated as members of the audience might say that like that's really that doesn't make a lot of sense, and that's maybe just the ideal situation, and you're saying that Mexico should be playing a part in this because maybe the message is they have to take on some of the blame for the reason as to why we have to incur this large expense. So that part, I mean, there were a lot of people who were like who really thought that was going to be the case. And I think Trump had mentioned that they were going to be, if they were not going to pay for it, then they're going to be forced to pay for it by way of trade, more trade war stuff. So
right.
I don't think that happened, but
yeah, it didn't work out quite that way.
I'd like to say that there was a lot of money taken up for that from citizens. And Steve Bannon was found to be someone who had like embezzled a bunch of that money and misused it and stuff. And so like a lot of that money that was donated by citizens to assist in the border wall was scammed by Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
Yikes. So, how do you feel in general, Robin? Like, what was your feeling this whole border wall thing, like, as part of the the campaigning message, and then eventually how it played out? Do you think this was Americans pissing their money away, or do you see good has come out of this? Or
I'm not big on a wall. I do think that we definitely need reform within our immigration policy. We are using an immigration policy that has been around for a very long time, and it's very broken as far as like seeking asylum, coming here, and how long asylum seekers are actually. How long they go once they enter the country and request asylum, how long it takes them to actually get a hearing and to decide whether, I think that should and that should happen really quickly, so that if we decide that they're not eligible for asylum, that they can be sent back immediately. You know what I mean? Like, they should not be here for months and months and months waiting on a hearing, and then to decide if they're eligible. So we have like I blame, you know, the Democrats for this too, because they waited until Biden's presidency to try to do something about reforming the border bill, and it was a bill that was written by a Republican. It was very strict, actually, as far as what the Democrats would have asked for, and everybody was ready to sign it. And this, of course, this was under Biden's administration, and Trump told he came out and told the Republican lawmakers not to pass the bill because it would hurt him on the election, and so they did. They killed the guy that wrote the bill, killed his own bill because of that. So. And it would have provided a lot more judges for our immigration policy. I would say that, you know, over the years, the Republicans have done a lot to make the immigration policy not work properly, so they can use it as a wedge issue.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. What I want to do is I just want to do a little bit of reading with regards to the wall and look at the outcomes, and then I would like to welcome and ask Objective Ethics what their answer to today's question is. And just so that you have a little bit of time to prepare, the question is: has President Trump done anything good? That's what we're wrestling with today. But so here are some potential well-being benefits for those of you who care about physical, mental, and social health outcomes. So apparently fewer illegal border crossings in walled areas. So one of the clearest findings in the literature is that physical barriers can reduce illegal crossings where they are built. A widely cited economics study estimated that new barriers reduced unauthorized crossings by roughly 15 to 35% in nearby sectors, although migrants often shifted to other locations. So yeah, you know, if you cause deterrence in the regular problem areas, then what are migrants going to do? Some people would say, oh, then I guess they'll just give up. Well, would you just give up, or would you go to a less guarded area, right? If fewer people cross illegally, there's fewer dangerous pursuits. Those are the ones that I care about most, like, because there's a lot of danger that is undertaken by some migrants trying to cross over the border illegally, and sometimes it's with their children. Horrible situations. Fewer deaths from desert crossings in those sectors. Sorry, Robin, go ahead.
I was just going to bring up, there was in Texas, there was the governor of Texas put these floating barriers in the Rio Grande River. They had barbed wire and stuff, like razor blade stuff.
Ooh,
and there was a woman and her children that were actually killed trying to swim across that barrier.
Oh, I fucking
horrific.
Yes. So when you do something like that, you have to, because we're talking about lives being at stake. Anyone who thinks that you don't have the responsibility to, like, if people swim out there or whatever, there needs to be a platform provided so people don't drown. Obviously, you would put that on their side, but yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Fewer opportunities for some criminal smuggling operations by way of these walls. So there are some genuine well-being gains from these perspectives. Human trafficking organizations often exploit unsecured crossing areas. So a wall can slow crossings, and in this case, the wall has been demonstrated to slow crossings, funnel movement toward monitored locations, increase the likelihood of interception. So the idea here is that some sexual exploitation, forced labor, organized criminal activity has been reduced, but the exact magnitude is difficult to quantify because trafficking is largely hidden, right? But the hope is once you try to funnel these criminals to more monitored locations, then you'll catch more of them, and that will hopefully reduce some exploitation and help catch the evildoers, the wrongdoers. There's also the public sense of security, and I think that would lean into kind of what RCM was talking about as well, with this greater idea of if you don't have secured borders, or you must have secured borders in order to have a well-functioning nation. Greater perceived security can improve stress levels, confidence in institutions, social stability. Perception alone is not necessarily proof of objective benefit by way of physical, mental, and social health. But there seems to be a mental well-being relevance here for people who really are concerned about that. If you alleviate some of that concern by building some wall or the full wall, there is well-being benefit there. More time for border patrol. A wall is not intended to be impenetrable. Rather, it delays crossings. That extra time allows agents to respond. Think of it as locking your front door rather than making burglary impossible. Many security experts describe physical barriers as one of the components of a broader system, including sensors, drones, and personnel. And these wall projects have almost certainly contributed in the positive direction towards that goal. So very high financial costs. Cost estimates vary depending on terrain. Common estimates include roughly $6 to $16 million per mile for simple barriers. Some difficult sections exceed $20 to $30 million per mile. The Trump era expansion cost approximately $15 billion in federal spending for hundreds of miles of new or replacement barriers. So the opportunity cost matters. That money could alternatively fund hospitals, mental health, addiction treatment, education, police, technological surveillance. So one of my key questions becomes, would another investment have produced more physical, mental, and social health per dollar? Yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the things that are being worked on here aren't good by my standards of maximization of well-being. There's a bit of environmental damage to take into consideration. Migration, again, often shifts rather than stops. If you plug one hole, the migration is a bit kind of like water trying to escape, if you want to use that analogy. So there was this idea that like fentanyl, like large amounts of fentanyl were going to be stopped, and we were going to see a drastic decrease in the amount of fentanyl coming into the United States. The evidence suggests otherwise. So most illicit fentanyl entering the United States is seized at official ports of entry, often concealed in passenger vehicles or commercial trucks rather than carried across open desert. Recent GAO reviews emphasize that border security against fentanyl depends heavily on inspections, intelligence, and investigations, and note that DHS still lacks strong performance measures for evaluating overall effectiveness. Call me daddy. Can you please mute? We're getting your background noise. Thank you. Welcome, by the way. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, there are some positives, and obviously there are some heavy costs there as well. So that would be one thing to assess when it comes to $15 billion. Would you see this as a good use of those funds if you were the arbiter or the person to dictate how those funds are spent? So objective ethics, it would be really cool to hear your take on today's question. Has Trump done anything good? And also, if you could also provide some insight as to how you do ethical deliberation, how you determine good from bad, right from wrong in the world, that would be excellent.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak. And full disclosure, I fully admit that I'm relatively ignorant when it comes to politics. I identify and register as an independent centrist, and I find politics in America have been reduced down to identity politics as far as I'm concerned. And it seems like marginalized groups and the things that people claim to care about tend to just get used as a cudgel to promote one particular political agenda over another. And again, I'm very ignorant, so maybe I'm just not seeing the bigger picture. But in my unqualified view, has Trump done anything good? I always try to be fair because I believe in virtue ethics. I believe that justice requires fairness, and I think that's the way we should approach every situation to determine truth. And I think that it would be unfair to say that Trump has done nothing good. I run businesses in the restaurant, bar and restaurant industry, casinos, things like that, and I have a number of employees. In fact, the majority of my employees benefit from the no tax on tips that Trump has been trying to push through. So that's a huge benefit because people who make tips rely heavily on that as a major source of their income, and the taxability on tips is usually generally extremely high. So I would just say, to start with something positive, I'd say that Trump's no tax on tips policy, my understanding is he's got a no tax on Social Security as well. I don't understand why we were ever taxing Social Security. That seems like that would be a double or triple tax at that point. So I would say, just to be fair, I would say in regards to the immigration stuff, again, I think both sides have used the illegal immigrants as a tool to promote a particular political agenda. I don't think either side cares about these people as far as human beings go. As a moral realist, I believe there are true moral facts that obtain when we select goals. I think a natural goal for us to select is based on empathy, and we call it a social contract. Once the goal is realized, then we can ascertain true facts, which we call morals, such as wrong to steal, because that would be self-refuting to the goal of cooperation. We evolved as a social species. This is why we obtain these goals in the first place. It only aligns with our best interest to obtain these goals. And so I think that you can determine moral facts from this. So it makes morality objective from that viewpoint. Ontologically, it's objective because it's all based on cause and effect and the laws of nature, which again comes from evolution. It's mind independent. So you can look at objective from mind independence or from obtaining true facts.
I won't push back on that. I won't push back on that piece today. But at some point I will want to do an episode when you're available to talk objective ethics. That would be great, because I have a lot of pushback on that, but I don't want that to pull away from today's episode. You outlined something here. So this policy, no tax on tips, the policy became federal law as part of 2025 tax legislation signed in July 4th, 2025. It allows eligible workers in occupations that customarily receive tips to deduct up to $25,000 in qualified tip income from federal income tax. That's actually pretty huge. Like if you think of like up to $25,000. Yeah, go ahead, Robin. Do you have something on that?
I'm sure you've got more though about what you've looked up on it, because it's only good for like 3 years, and they're still eligible for Social Security tax and stuff.
Yep. So it phases out for individuals with modified adjusted gross income above $150K or $300,000 for married couples. I think that's actually a good thing. The deduction applies for tax years 2025 to 2028. Importantly, Social Security and Medicare payroll taxes still apply, and state income taxes may still apply depending on the state. So yeah, the deduction applies for tax years 2025 to 2028. I assume that that's what was able to get past that term. And then beyond that, I assume no tax on tips is going to end unless it's reenacted. Is that kind of what is everyone's understanding here?
Yes, it will expire, and they will have to.
It'll expire. it'll expire, and there would likely be an opportunity for.
Yeah, it'll be eligible for the 2028 year of the tax filing stat for that 2028 year. So
Right.
when you file for 2028 taxes, you'll still be able to use it, but going
Yeah.
into the next tax season, it will be expired if they don't like extend it.
Yeah. And I guess some people will have the attitude of like, well, I don't make tips. What about me? How does this benefit me?
Well, my understanding is, oh, I'm sorry, brother.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
My understanding this is that it's also relative to no tax on overtime, and I believe, as I mentioned, also no tax on Social Security. So there's a few other areas that were addressed in this, all included in this bill, I
Right.
guess you'd call it.
Yeah, no tax on Social Security. And what was the other piece?
I believe
No
it
ta-
also included no tax on overtime.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong about this. Again, I admit my ignorance on a lot of this stuff, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, it was overtime, but there's some issues with the overtime thing too, actually.
What were the issues, Robin?
Well, I'll have to look them up like I had.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, we're going to see higher take-home pay for around 6 million workers in the United States by way of this. Some greater work incentives help lower and middle income workers. Potential costs, obviously, like I brought up, not everyone benefits. Can create this idea of unequal treatment between like the restaurant server and like a grocery cashier. That's one example that's been used by critics. May encourage tip inflation. Some economists worry businesses could increasingly rely on tipping and lower the wages. I mean, that is kind of a bit of a natural response to that. By
as
working
somebody
at
who's
my
a
business. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
As a business manager and a consultant in this industry, and I've worked all over the U.S. and helped build businesses up in the what we call the service industry, and this is a standard operating procedure for most businesses. Almost every single business that hires tippable employees, they always hire them at minimum wage with the understanding that tips are going to be a significant portion of their income. So that hasn't changed and won't change based on the implementation of this bill. It only will benefit the people who it applies to. Of course, that is going to be a select group of people, but this group of people is by and large, I'd say almost exclusively, not entirely, but by and large, they are people who are lower middle class to at or below the medium line. So the people who are benefiting from this are people who we would say definitely could use this extra money. A lot of single parents, a lot of college students are working in this industry in the tips.
But that I understand all that, but what these industry critics, some of them are saying that where they would disagree with you, they're more concerned. They're not concerned about lowering the minimum wage, because the minimum wage has to be adhered to anyway. They're talking about people who might normally the offer was maybe people are making $20 an hour in whatever place, and then now because of this no tax on tips, businesses might feel more inclined. Well, there's more incentive now to work at a restaurant, and not that they're going to lower it down to minimum wage entry level, but like where people might have been able make a higher wage, now they might tier that down. I think it's a legitimate critique based on what some economists are saying here, but I agree with you that like for that entry level minimum wage, obviously they can't lower the base wages there.
And actually, SOP on this in this industry is that these employers are hiring these people at minimum wage. I'm not saying that they're going to try and get minimum wage lowered. I'm saying that they are bringing these service workers in at minimum wage with the understanding that while it is considered to be a skilled profession within the industry, that they know that the tipping is a large part of the income. So there aren't I'm not saying it can't happen, but there are not very many people making above minimum wage plus tips. It's generally they will be hired at minimum wage, and they're not required. You're never required to give a raise as long as you have under 500 employees or whatever, and you're up in a different type of a business classification. So they will be at those minimum wage rates, and they will not move from that rate in most circumstances. Now, you might take a shift lead position or a bartender lead position or a casino floor manager, something of this nature, right? But for the most part, once you get hired in at minimum wage, your tips are your raises. You're not getting any scheduled hourly raises on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna see what I can find with regards to the statistics on what you said, like the actual numbers and variance, like how many people of the 6 million, service workers that were outlined in this bill, what portion of those are not being hired at minimum wage? Because you seem to think like that the overwhelming majority are, right, based on your understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say the overwhelming majority are being brought in at minimum wage. And a lot of restaurants are like fast food service providers that traditionally had not allowed tips, especially corporate situations. Whatever your restaurant might be. Now, McDonald's may not necessarily change their position, but some of the smaller chains have now started taking tips. So like what's the name of that chicken place that's just right up the street there? Popeyes. So you got like Popeyes Chicken started allowing their restaurant servers to take tips when that was previously not part of their policy. Certain franchisees are starting to do that. Franchise owners are starting to implement tips where it was not normally part of the procedure, because it allows them to keep people at minimum wage and incentivize them with tips.
Right. Yeah, I'm just looking. It's obviously different from state to state, but yeah, go ahead, Robin.
In Kentucky, they're not required to hire you in at minimum wage. Like they hire you in at minimum wage, but they count your tips as getting you to minimum wage. So, I worked in several restaurants back years and years ago where I made $2 an hour. Because the rest of that they added up and said that the rest of it would be made up by tips to get you to minimum wage. So that
doesn't sound like it's legal. I know some things are different state to state, but I've never worked in a state that they can hire you below minimum wage, and because your tips are going to be on a variable, so they can't guarantee that you're going to be getting minimum wage.
Well, in Kentucky, it is very legal for them to do that. They can use what whatever their they average out that your tips would probably be or whatever. They can use that as your minimum wage pay, so they can hire you in at which the only good thing about this is that recently, during the COVID and stuff, that service workers became in such great demand that they did increase a lot of pay for service workers, like in restaurants and things like that. There was McDonald's and stuff around here raised their rates and everything to pay above that, but there was still they still can use that to average out your pay. They can use what they used your tips. What was your tips going to be your tips?
Well, I would say that if that's the case, and again, I'm not telling you that you're wrong, because state to state they do have different laws. Now there's the federal law regarding reporting income, and then there's a state law. So the tips have to be reported separately because federal law is going to be the same for all states. But your state to state law could have a variance, but you still have to have that tip reporting in a separate category on your W-2 forms. So the issue on your pay stubs, right? So the issue then becomes, if it is in fact true, if I just grant you that there are these companies, and I'm willing to, because I know you're an honest person and well studied, so I'm just going to grant you that there are states where they're hiring out below minimum wage, and they're saying we're not going to pay you an hourly rate unless your tips don't equal up to minimum wage, or we're going to give you $2 an hour, and then we're going to supplement that or subsidize with tips up until minimum wage to make sure you're getting minimum wage. It's even more important that those tips aren't taxed, because the tax on tips comes to a separate category on the pay stub and in your W-2s.
Yes, but I would say that the fact that we are making it to where restaurants are relying on the customers to tip to make up for the pay of their workers is an issue. Like, and so
Well-
it's kind of promoting that behavior.
There is not so that you just outlined some economists' concerns here. There's not yet any strong empirical evidence that this effect has occurred on a significant scale, but this is more about just some economists making predictions that this will have some level of impact. But if the level of impact is quite small, then I think if someone's doing kind of a general view consequentialist calculus here, it looks like there's going to be a lot of well-being gained rather than lost, unless what some of these economists are worried about ends up blowing up or spilling over. But it's too early yet to there's not a lot of great data to suggest that this effect has occurred at any significant scale. Obviously, case by case basis, we can find cases, but
well, it's definitely an area where like OE said, the people that work in these jobs definitely were people that needed this extra money. Like I will grant that. Like, I think that they work hard, and and sometimes like big restaurants will go ahead and charge you a tip, like 15% or something if you've got enough people. But a lot of times, a lot of people will go eat, and I've seen all kinds of people, have like 4 of them eating, and the person does a lot of work, and they don't even leave them a tip. So you know what I mean, like,
Right.
and yeah, they work hard.
Yeah, tips are not guaranteed, right? Unless you're working in a restaurant where you only take large tables and there's a guaranteed, required tip. I just wanted to say hello to everyone on YouTube. Hopefully you are subscribed to the new Pangburn Live YouTube channel. If you're familiar with Pangburn, it's probably because you're familiar with our main channel, where we produce live intellectual discussions featuring people like Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, more recently Destiny, Constantine Kissin, Alex O'Connor. So we produce a lot of live intellectual discussions all around the world. We are fully international, and this is a new Pangburn Live YouTube channel we have started here that is specifically for community discussions and education and community debates, and everyone's allowed to join our community. If you could smash that like button on this stream, that would be fantastic. And I've given you the Discord link where you can jump into this conversation right now. We talk about all kinds of different topics relating to religion, philosophy, politics, more in general, art, science, you name it. But we're live almost every night. So if you're looking for a discussion community where you'll get good faith, helpful interactions with your ideas, please consider joining us for that, and make sure you hit the subscribe button for our YouTube channel here. We are talking about, we are dealing with the question, has President Trump done anything good? And we haven't had anyone come in and say that President Trump hasn't done anything good. We are also going to crack open the negative egg as well today, and maybe we could do that now. Robin, what are some of the negatives you see about that you've seen regarding Donald Trump's presidencies, I should say?
Yes, I've made my list. Let's see. One of the biggest things he did was he stacked the Supreme Court with justices who were intent on overturning Roe v. Wade. So the court that he packed up, overturned Roe v. Wade, which removed 50 years of abortion protection for women. and has had. I've got all the details on that one. So, like, that has caused significant damage to the health of women and mortality rates within women and infants. He also this term here, he signed a order on the first day stating that there were two sexes, male and female, and so his administration and many of the Republicans have been working to damage the medical rights of transgender people, and restrict the amount of gender affirming care that minors and even adults are able to take. A lot of the states have restricted, like, they can get their gender markers on their IDs and stuff. So that has been bad for that. And ICE, he put ICE out into the streets of the United States, rounding up people. Ended up in, like, several different American citizens were killed, were shot by ICE agents who, and he built detention, like Alligator Alcatraz, which was a place that was just like a horrific conditions that they would have lived in. And let's see, I had something else here too. Oh, he has weakened our separation of church and state with a lot of things. He is like he's been violating actually all the church and state separation laws that we had, or about the First Amendment, and that he's got like a religious, like, group in the White House that is giving him advice, which conflicts with our First Amendment rights. And so a lot recently, Hegseth signed a thing from the Pentagon eliminating 180 recognized religions from what the soldiers can actually say that they belong to these different religions. One of them was atheist. So, like, no longer can you have atheist on your dog tags or anything. They removed 180 different religions from that list of religions that were recognized by the United States military. And there was one more. Oh, Doge. He had Elon Musk come in and do this Doge, and they cut a lot of U.S. aid that we gave. They cut, like, a lot of AIDS, like medicine that was sent to Africa and people that were over there. So we lost, like, I think last time I checked, there was like I can't remember. It's like 80,000 people died almost, like, pretty quickly over the Doge cuts that they did, where they cut a lot of, like, aid, like food aid and stuff like that to other countries. So yeah, and he's done several other things too. That's just the main ones that have been, like, the most harmful to.
And how does that weigh against the good things you outlined earlier with regards to President Trump and his presidencies?
Oh, he definitely receives a failing grade in his first term. I would say he kind of did poorly. Of course, all the little thing where he tried to steal, like, overturn the election and all that kind of. And I forgot one other thing too. Racial violence has increased, like hate crimes within the United States has increased significantly under his watch, because he has stirred racial and gender and things like that, like division. So yeah, it's he's failing, severely failing. We're bombing. His military bombed a school in Iran and didn't even check their their information on that school. It had been a school for years, and it hadn't been any part of the military installment for years. We know schools had been going on there, and they didn't even check their information before they bombed it.
So,
Um,
and
it's not
you
only
would say, would
yeah.
you say that's Trump's fault? The bombing?
Directly, no, but he has installed incompetent people in important positions. Pete Hegseth was a weekend news reporter on Fox News. He was not competent to be running the United States Pentagon, and he never will be. He's a drunk, and like he's been, he's like several different incidences of like intoxication and stuff. So like he's got a long history of drinking, and he never had the training to be doing the job he's doing anyway. He was in the military at one time. He was never a high ranking officer. He never had any kind of like exceptional credentials given to him during his time in military. So
Right. So that's that military fuck up is a big one, right? So apparently the current explanation is the reason why this happened was outdated targeting intelligence, a former nearby military compound, plus a failure to update no strike safeguards. Reports say the school was near formerly connected to an IRGC facility, so old U.S. targeting data may have still treated the location as military. Later evidence suggested it had been operating as a civilian school for years with a public web presence and visible civilian features. Preliminary U.S. investigation reporting pointed to faulty, outdated coordinates and insufficient safeguards, not deliberate targeting of children. Yeah, that's a major fuck up when something like that happens. And I don't know what Trump, I'm curious to say, what has Trump said about this publicly?
But he did not apologize, and in fact, he tried to blame Iran for doing it at first.
Yeah,
But
that
it
was
was
the
one of our-
first initial response. Yeah.
They moved the buildings.
They what? Sorry.
They all have schools. Almost all military bases have schools on them. Peter, they all, any military base in any country have children who attend school that their parents are based on that military base. So they all have,
On expat bases, yes, they generally have a school.
they
there.
all have schools on them. Yeah.
Okay, so he has said at the G7 summit in June, Trump said nobody did that on purpose, and he added mistakes are made during war and stressed that the investigation was still underway. Most recently, June 24th, he said it may never be known who was at fault. He said he had not seen the final investigation, noted that there were missiles flying all over the place. Yeah, I mean, he has not yet publicly acknowledged that the U.S. military was responsible, so this is something we should watch for. He has not issued an apology to the victims' families. He has not accepted responsibility on behalf of the United States. He has continued to emphasize that the investigation is ongoing and that the event was not deliberate. So, yeah, for me, that's what I'm going to want to see. If it was, in fact, a fuck up by the, just wait.
Our military.
If it was, just wait.
Okay.
If it was in fact the U.S. military fucked up, he needs to do all of these things. He needs to publicly acknowledge the responsibility. He needs to issue an apology to the victims' families, maybe more to the families. He's got to accept responsibility on behalf of the United States. He's got to do all these things. That's a horrible tragedy. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles this. I mean, Trump has a really bad track record of how he handles tragedies. I think of that plane crash tragedy. When he was joking about not wanting to get wet.
Yes.
you know, when people asked him like, have you seen the crash and what happened? And he said, well, no, if I go to where it crashed, you know, I'd get wet. Like he was making, I recall him making really insensitive jokes about that. So yeah, I mean, this was quite a recent, well, the most recent update was June 24th. So it'll be interesting to see whether he does the righteous good thing here or not.
And I do not think it was intentional. I don't.
Of course
I don't
not.
want
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I do.
Of course
I do not think it was intentional. But I do. You know, I do think that it was a major mistake that could have been avoided.
Well, yeah. I mean, right here, it looks like the current explanation is outdated targeted intelligence plus a former nearby military compound plus failure to update no strike safeguards. There's 3 major fuck ups. And, you know, people can look using Google Earth apparently and see that there are non-military visible civilian features. And then also there's a public web presence for this school with the address. That's the lack of due diligence there is horrifying. So yeah, he needs to take responsibility. He's the commander in chief. He needs to step up, take responsibility. Will he? Am I going to hold my breath? No, because I don't know if Trump really has ever taken responsibility on his own shoulders for much. Maybe some occasions, but does anyone else have anything to offer? So far we've spent some time talking about some of the good things Donald Trump has done in his presidencies. You know, so for example, Arcion liked the results of the wall and the implementation of the wall. There's been a few other different things people have liked. No tax on tips was brought up by Objective Ethics. I brought up the more obvious things by well-being calculus standards like Operation Warp Speed. What are some other goods some of you have noticed? We have Mino, Don, Barry, Peter. We have some more members here. Does anyone have any good things to share about Trump's presidencies? Go ahead, Don.
Well, I think he secured more spending into NATO in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So I think overall that's a good step in the right direction to make sure that Europe bolsters its military infrastructure to create a more cohesive deterrent for radical dictatorships to
expansionism.
Fight war.
Yeah. That's
about it. For another list.
Well, that's a good one because we haven't talked about that. And yeah, that seems to be the case. And there are commitments and pledges. We have to wait for the actual spending. But yeah, at the 2025 NATO summit in NATO members agreed to a major increase in defense spending. The new target is 3.5% of GDP on core military spending, troops, weapons, operations, an additional 1.5% of GDP on defense-related investments, cybersecurity, infrastructure, logistics, resilience. Combined, this equals 5% of GDP by 2035, with annual implementation plans and a review in 2029. Question is, did Trump cause this? Most analysts agree that Trump's pressure was a major contributing factor. So other drivers obviously include Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which, for me, it's like you throw the kitchen sink at it, you throw all the money at it. You need to send a message to any expansionist regimes out there, make make a lesson out of what Vladimir Putin has done here, and the Russian people. Force him back, smash him back. That's the well-being preservation thing to do here, in my opinion.
I think it's interesting to look at Trump as a pendulum swing and to be careful about how that might swing back.
Okay, can you expand on that? Can you provide some details?
Well,
that's interesting.
If the left want to push things in a particular direction so far, you're going to get that swing to the right. But
maybe
you could also argue that the United States has never been more divided.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's empirical. We can look at that, but
we did have a
it
civil
wouldn't.
war.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I mean, like you don't
want a
look
war.
at the Civil.
You do not want a war.
But perhaps the United States was more divided during the Civil War. Someone could argue that, but
yeah, of course,
I get what you're saying. Like in contemporary ages, was the Obama presidency as divisive and separatist as the Trump era? Almost certainly not.
Even Bush. I mean, I remember people from the States coming to visit here and Europe when I was living in the States back in like 2005, 2006, and they had to say they were Canadian. They couldn't say they were American.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting anecdote. I guess the question would be how. Well, but the question would be how widespread is that particular phenomena you just outlined, right?
It was with Europe. Europe was very angry with George W. Bush.
Yeah.
From a social justice perspective, and I would have been in that mix.
Yeah, and we are getting into some more of the negatives here. So Mino, did you have anything to that you wanted to share on Trump? Good things you see. I'm glad Don added that that particular point. I think that was important. Yeah, go ahead, Mino.
My voice is destroyed, so I apologize.
Oh, you've been watching soccer, hey?
No. It's a crazy story about me saving our dogs from a wolverine.
Oh,
but that's not what this is about. But what I was going to say is the right to try.
Okay.
Which is the idea that if you're a terminal patient, you can opt into experimental treatments.
Yes, we went. I went through that earlier, but I'm glad you're bringing it up again. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent for personal freedoms. So when he did that, I was like, yeah, when somebody feels like I have nothing left to lose, and I can give you a specific case of Scott Adams, who was the creator of the Dilbert comic, and he was dying of cancer. Obviously, he didn't make it, sadly. But the fact that he was able to, not leave any bullet in the barrels, to me, that's important. That is something I support.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Fantastic. That's an additional check mark to that one because I added that one early on, but that's great to hear that again. I have a list of negatives here. So I talked earlier about Operation Warp Speed for COVID and how, despite the initial response and the messaging from Donald Trump, that all in all, Operation Warp Speed, produced a lot of well-being flourishing, physical, mental, and social health flourishing by way of vaccinations. Now, but I want to outline with regards to this, the COVID response failure. So one of the strongest negatives here being downplaying risk, confusing messaging, politicizing masks and vaccines, and weak federal coordination likely cost many lives. The Lancet Commission argued the U.S. could have avoided a large share of COVID deaths if it had performed like peer nations. So that's the reason why that one's near the top of the list, or at the top of the list, is because there are going to be very, very few issues that we can point to, that we can point directly to, mismanagement caused deaths. And this almost certainly did. This level of downplaying risk, confusing messaging, politicizing masks and vaccines, etc. So that one is a dark stain. For me, one of the biggest ones, talking about Russia-Ukraine war for a bit, was the attempted extortion of the Ukrainian people and Ukraine while they were under war duress from invading Russia. Trump trying to extort a multi-billion-dollar mineral deal from Ukraine, saying that, well, if you don't accept this, we very well just might pull our support for you with regards to defending against this expansion.
Oh, is that the one with himself and Vance giving him, basically insulting him on live TV?
Yeah, so that was after this.
Okay, yeah.
So
that was bad.
that probably even more than the COVID response failure, I believe is going to be the biggest historical stain on Trump's presidency. And I think that kind of like just purely disgusting, like business-like implementation, playing fast and loose with the lives of Ukrainian people, is just disgusting. And eventually Trump did pull necessary intelligence information that again almost certainly led to deaths. Eventually, to my understanding, the support was reinstated. But that kind of like extortion to an ally, they're not a NATO member, but that doesn't mean they're not an ally. But to an ally when they're under war duress from an expansionist dictator, that shows you the level of moral aptitude that is going on in the mind of Donald Trump. That is one of the most disgusting things in recent political history I have ever seen or witnessed. I was awestruck. And the limited amount of attention it got, of course, there was a lot of outrage, but for how bad it was, for how bad that's going to play on the history of the United States, electing this guy that would do that to this ally and the kind of message that sends to other allies, there's no other word for it but just disgusting, evil. By evil, I mean just absurd levels of contradiction to what I think is morally good, maximizing physical, mental, and social health.
It was very well
for
recognized
people
here in Europe that people were disgusted with that.
Oh yeah, I mean, Canadians, like, you could see this like bipartisan agreement between conservatives and liberals, and like it was such a uniting thing against the evil, the evil United States doing this. Like, it's almost like a lot of nations just had to like swallow the pill and be like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
The United States is at this point where they put, this toddler with Tinker Toys of mass destruction, in a position of power. And this is the kind of shit you get. That, like, compared to the trade war bullshit, that is just purely and utterly evil, in my view.
It didn't bode well with either side of the political spectrum.
Well,
because it
yeah,
was just
many
fucking
Republicans literally washed their hands of
Yeah, it
Trump
was just
after
pure
that. And I'm
rudeness. If you could put it that way, it was rude.
Well, it was more,
but it
no,
also caused death.
Yeah.
Did it cause that?
That bullshit caused death because the information that was so important, the intelligence information that was being shared, was seized and stopped for a period of time. And during that time, there was good incentive. There was good incentive for Russians to push particular kinds of advances.
That's terrible.
And the thing about it is the messaging that escaped the American public is we had, like, this is not something that we were just doing out of the kindness of our heart. We had a treaty signed. It's called the Budapest Memorandum.
Yeah, the Budapest
and it was
Memorandum.
signed, and it was signed by Russia, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and Ukraine. And Ukraine had given up their nuclear weapons because of this treaty, because after the fall of the USSR, there was actually nuclear weapons that were left in Ukraine and that they had access to, and to get them to give up those and allow them to be destroyed, we signed a treaty. France, the United Kingdom, and the United States signed a treaty saying that we would, we'd not guarantee that we would throw military members in to protect them, but that we would actually provide them with any military weapons they needed to protect themselves if Russia was to invade them. And Russia signed this too. So when Putin entered Ukraine, he knew he was violating this treaty as well. So
yeah.
So Travis, do you think that Trump was playing one side off the other, like just a game?
Trump was just like a sleazy businessman doing what sleazy businessmen do. He saw an opportunity imagine a human being that's dying of cancer, and they are sitting on a rich fortune of goods. And that they're weak and dying of cancer, and you're the one that's providing them with their necessary cancer treatment. And then you go in there and you're like, you know what? I have no obligation to keep, based on my interpretation of our us being allies. I have no obligation to keep giving you this necessary medication for your survival. And you know what? And I think that this is a great time to be calling up the bill on what I think you owe me. So despite what this cancer is doing to you, I just might have to pull this medical support from you unless you guarantee me those resources that you're sitting on. So literally take that, expand it into the health and well-being of an entire nation. So think about it this way. Ukraine was fighting for its survival against Russia. The US had enormous leverage because Ukraine depended on American military and financial support. Conditioning future support on giving the U.S. access to valuable national resources amounted to coercion and coercing a vulnerable country. That is how the United States treated its ally when they needed the United States most. and that is
But
a
that wasn't the
stain
original.
on. Sorry,
Sorry, that wasn't the original
not-
thing that he did.
I'm not
too.
talking about the original thing. I'm talking about
yeah.
right now what Trump did. You got to follow what I'm saying. I'm talking about this particular critique.
Did he give Russia information or
No,
just
no.
no?
No, there's some conspiracy theorists out there that would say crap like that, but no, there's no good evidence to suggest that
No, I just asked a question.
the U.S. aided this Russian invasion.
Okay. Right.
But,
No, but his
the whole
first-
thing makes me fucking sick.
The first thing he did though was when he threatened with President Zelensky with cutting off the military aid if he did not give him some information on Joe Biden. It was like during the election, he wanted some information that he could use against Joe Biden, and he wanted Zelensky refused. That was the call, the famous call that he made. He said it was the most perfect call, and it was like a extortion like thing to try to get Zelensky to hand over some kind of blackmail information against Biden so he could use it in the election to run when he was running against him. And Zelensky refused, and that's what started his anger with Ukraine and his determination to like damage.
But
the
Robin, that is a separate issue. To connect those, you would need a way to draw that line necessarily. Like for you to say, if you're trying to make the argument that the reason why Trump went and attempted to extort Ukraine was because he was mad, and it wasn't to do with like the whatever it was, $50 billion mineral deal. You have to make that case. You would have to provide some proof for that. I would say it's conspiratorial line drawing to say that had to do with this other level of extortion. You could say that was a kind of, extortion as well. You're saying that.
Yeah, it was the original one. Like the one you're talking about with the mineral things was the recent one. But this one was like in the like at the end of his first term when Russia first was getting ready to enter in there into like had not entered into Ukraine yet. Like he was that so like that's where if you look it up, it was a call that he had made Zelensky from the Oval Office asking for blackmail information on Biden, and
I want to clear, Robin. I just want to clear up this information though, just so we get the right information here. So what is well established is July 2019, the Trump administration put a hold on $391 million in congressionally approved military aid to Ukraine. During the July 25, 2019 phone call, Trump asked Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, a debunked theory that Ukraine, rather than Russia, interfered in the 2016 U.S. election. The White House's own memorandum of the call shows that after Zelensky discussed military assistance, Trump replied, "I would like you to do us a favor, though," and then requested those investigations. Was there an explicit threat? No, there is no sentence in the call saying, if you don't investigate Biden, I will withhold military aid. Was there evidence of an implied quid pro quo? Many witnesses testified that there was. For example, Ambassador William Taylor Jr. testified he understood military aid and the White House meeting were conditioned on Ukraine publicly announcing the investigations. Ambassador Gordon Sondland testified that he worked with Rudy Giuliani at the president's express direction, and that there was a quid pro quo involving the investigations. The House Intelligence Committee concluded Trump conditioned both military aid and an Oval Office meeting on Ukraine publicly announcing investigations that would benefit him politically. Trump's position: Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing, arguing the aid was withheld because he wanted European countries to contribute more and because of concerns about corruption. There was no quid pro quo. Ukraine ultimately received the aid without opening the investigations. Independent findings. A significant independent finding came from the U.S. Government Accountability Office, which concluded that the White House violated federal law by withholding congressionally approved appropriated aid for policy reasons not authorized by law. That ruling did not determine Trump's criminal liability, but found the aid freeze itself unlawful. So the bottom line, the evidence supports these conclusions. Yes, Trump asked Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden while military aid was being withheld. Yes, numerous officials testified that the aid and White House meeting were being used as leverage to obtain those investigations. No, there is no public evidence of an explicit verbal threat saying investigate Joe Biden or you won't get the aid. This conduct formed the central basis of Trump's first impeachment for abuse of power. The House impeached him, but the Senate later acquitted him. Does that line up with what you are aware of, Robin?
Yes, that would be it right there. Like
Okay.
it was, I mean, like it was like the basis of his, one of his impeachment, but the Senate did not, and no, he didn't. Like even Zelensky said he did not actually make an actual threat, but he sort of felt like that it was implied. I mean, Zelensky pretty much stayed out of it because he didn't want to piss off either one of them really, because he didn't know who was going to win the election. So, he didn't want to make an enemy out of whoever won the election.
But we have to realize that Russia invaded Ukraine February 24th of 2022. So I just think like these issues are, it's interesting to point out and say that Trump seems to have this kind of capacity to tease at this, and then went full out with the mineral deal extortion, attempted extortion. But I just think like trying to compare these in any way, if anyone's trying to compare these, is just like non-comparable. We're talking about, this is to just bring this into perspective. Imagine if your country was being invaded and people are dying. Your wives, your mothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your fathers, your sons are being killed in this expansionist invasion. Really, that were given similar reasons to when Hitler felt that they were entitled to invade Poland after being warned that this would trigger the next Great War. A lot of the same kind of reasoning by Vladimir Putin. But anyways, imagine we're in this situation, and imagine you have this hope that we have great allies. They're going to come. They're going to continue to support us. They're going to be here for us, and obviously they're going to support us because this is expansionist Russia. This is a war of aggression, and then you hear of, the greatest power, your greatest ally to rely on in this situation, is trying to force your country into a financially debilitating deal while you are at your weakest to continue the support, which quite frankly, when you actually look at the support level by the standards of GDP, the United States of America is not doing near fucking enough for the Ukraine-Russian war. Nowhere near enough. And we can look at those statistics if we want to get into this, but I did extensive episodes and research on, the United States, and a lot of people thinking, well, we're just giving so much, but when you compare it to GDP, fuck no. So yeah, just to go back to where this all started, this is, I think, will be one of the great stains in the 21st century on the United States of America, caused by Trump and his administration, just acting in the most deeply immoral, nasty way that led to Ukrainians being killed. So yeah, that is for me way beyond even the COVID response failure. So then we have family separation and child trauma. Separating migrant children from parents is one of the clearest mental health harms: acute fear attachment, injury, PTSD risk, depression risk, and long-term development damage. Over 5,000 children were separated under zero tolerance. Healthcare coverage loss. Repealing the ACA individual mandate penalty was projected by CBO to increase the uninsured by 13 million people by 2027. Less insurance means delayed care, worse chronic disease outcomes, more financial stress, and preventable suffering. Environmental deregulation. Rolling back clean air and climate protections increase asthma, heart disease, respiratory disease. Sorry, something's going off. Your rolling back clean air and climate protections increases asthma, heart disease, respiratory disease, heat harms, and premature death risk. This is a physical health negative that often hits children, the elderly, and poorer communities hardest. Immigrant chilling effect on healthcare. Public charge and enforcement policies discourage some immigrant and mixed status families from using Medicaid, CHIP, CHIP, food support, and care they were legally eligible for. That harms children's physical health and family health. Family mental health directly. Social trust damage. Trump's rhetoric often intensified polarization, suspicion of institutions, racial, ethnic hostility, and contempt-based politics. From a well-being lens, this is a major social health harm: less trust, less cooperation, more fear, more tribal hatred. And nutrition and poverty pressure. Stricter SNAP work requirement approaches risk removing food assistance from vulnerable people. SNAP, SNAP, reduces food insecurity and is associated with lower health care costs. So cuts or barriers can worsen physical and mental health outcomes for people who rely on this. So, like, just by these few things I've outlined here, simply with regards to policy, and we haven't even got into, like, because we've been talking about Trump as a president today, and this is not even to mention his deplorable character. But a lot of this stuff is just so egregiously bad. It's hard not to call it just evil. Just the level of human well-being violation I see here, and it just baffles me that the United States of America, despite the short list of good things we've went over today, could not find a way to put an end to this dictatorial regime of immorality that I think it's quite easy to show by well-being consequentialist calculus that is what has happened here. But feel free to weigh in, everyone. I rolled on for a bit there. Go ahead, Objective.
I don't mean to be rude and just interject myself. I have to go. My wife needs some help with some house chores and the light is dropping, but may I just possibly just offer two things for consideration on my way out the door? And I appreciate you guys letting me jump in here. I would say installing RFK as the leader of the Department of Health and Human Services, I think will lead to a tremendous amount of harm. I think my understanding is that RFK has absolutely no background in medicine or biology. And we're seeing harm come from, like, I think, wasn't it RFK that was saying that autism can be linked to taking Tylenol? And this is a type of basically just insane misinformation and basically victim blaming. You have a neurodivergent disorder, which affects millions of people and at a very serious level, socially and economically, in so many ways. And to tell them that, well, if you wouldn't have taken that Tylenol, you could have avoided this, when it seems to be, for all scientific purposes, seems to be genetic. I think that's tremendously harmful. I think we're going to see a lot of residual harm
harm. I also think the climate science denial, I think just infusing climate science deniers by saying drill baby drill, we're going to see long-term damage from that. And I appreciate you guys letting me throw that that on the table and for letting me participate. It really like this community. I've just recently been introduced by Robin, and I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, OE. Thanks for weighing in, and thank you so much for bringing up the that appointment layer, like the appointments that Trump thought appropriate to some of these positions of power by, I mean, a guy like RFK Jr. He can't be trusted with, you know, a child's nutrition plan for an elementary school. Can you imagine trusting him for something like that? Let alone, you know, heading up the making him health secretary. That's insanity. Go ahead, Arsion.
Yeah, I was going to say one of my biggest problems with him was his treatment of the Second Amendment, like during his first term. One thing he did, like there was a mass shooting, but then he literally said, and I kid you not, we'll take away the guns first, then go through due process second. Like that's like one of the most unconstitutional things you can do. You can have your issues with guns, maybe even want more gun restrictions, but like pushing people to circumvent what's it called, due process for something like that is the most anti-constitutional thing you could possibly do, and it's very illegal.
Yeah, I mean, like Trump is quite obviously no fan of the Constitution, so it doesn't surprise me when shit like that happens. Yeah.
FEMA funding, like is another thing that we, especially with the climate, like change, weather patterns that we are seeing now. But like Tornado Alley has changed some. We've had significant flooding issues this year, like in the last few years, couple of years. Kentucky has suffered like several big flooding things, and a lot of this is considered part of like probably some, you know, adverse conditions related to the climate change. And he has been just trying to pretty much eliminate the office of FEMA altogether. But he went to where he was personally deciding who was eligible to get FEMA funding and who wasn't. So some states were like, he didn't want to give it to and he also like did the same thing with like fires, like California fires and stuff, because he doesn't like the Democratic states. He will like threaten to restrict funding for like wildfires and stuff for those areas too.
Right. Well, I think you know, I didn't want to leave this put this stream on for too long tonight. We're going to be back to streaming all week, you know, tomorrow. So everyone can have a little bit of a early night off. Those of us who come in and lift a lot of intellectual weights during these shows can take the night off. What up, Don? On YouTube, we're just finishing up. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the New Pangburn Live channel. We're going to you know, probably get back to something related to God tomorrow. We're going to have some God debates happening tomorrow. We'll do a little more on that. Those have been a lot of fun recently. And yeah, so I think we dealt with the question well today. We're in a lot of, you know, pro-Trumpers, and we have lots in our Discord server. There weren't a lot of them coming to Trump's defense here today, so that was interesting. But anyways, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's now tavern time. I'm going to give you the link to our Discord server one more time on YouTube if you want to join our Discord server. We will be hanging out in the tavern here, which is a little voice channel on our Discord server. So thanks everyone, really appreciate it. And make sure you are out there maximizing well-being for yourself